So are we?
Yeah, we are live.
Can you, oh, you have a cord to it to record it?
It's going to record on your phone.
Sound and,
Mm-hmm.
I see. Wow. If it could be a problem,
We've had it.
we've had it.
Okay.
Sort of the way life is. I thought what I would do is, now you got me turned sideways, for sure. Yeah.
There.
So, are we Bluetooth in?
Yeah.
Okay. So what I talked about very briefly about doing today is talking about plumbing. I do not claim to be a master plumber. I don't claim to be even a licensed journeyman plumber, but I have done a lot of plumbing. Be a master plumber. I don't claim to be even a licensed journeyman plumber, but I have done
Okay. I'm making sure.
Checking, yeah. In the world of plumbing, the first thing that happens in a house, and it would be anywhere, is the supply line coming in. It's not a good idea to put it in PVC, but there's a lot of PVC out there. As a matter of fact, a lot of supply lines at one time were made of wood. I was reading about a book, really interesting book. It was a funny book, but it's based on true story. So you know, a lot of Seattle had water lines that were made and supplied through wood. Of course, that didn't last a long time, but hey, it was a growing town. It was growing fast as it could go. And then after wood came concrete lines. They were made of different kinds of concrete. Sort of like the kind that you used to have for fireplaces. They would make brick that had a sort of a tube, but it was a same kind of supply line or water line, that maybe the same clay that you would put on a clay roof, that kind of thing. But it was a lot of concrete. As I recall, there were some lines made out of asbestos. Of course, that would be later. But eventually it came down to rigid steel. And that worked pretty good, and it lasted a long time. But for a home, most of the time your supply line is not going to be much more than, 2 inches really big line. You got a lot of water coming in with 2 inches. So most of the time it's going to be a 1 inch line. And that only because you need to keep your pressure up and you lose pressure as you go. And that's something similar to electrical. So if you have voltage drop with every bit of length that you have, so you do it with pressure on a water line. You want to build up enough pressure, enough volume to keep your volume up on the other end. So most of the time a 1 inch line will be what you need for a supply line. And now, instead of rigid, they have PVC. And then, finally, PEX, or copper tubing size, or CTS, which came before PEX, which is still very good, being it's malleable plastic, and a rock can get up against it, and a root can get up on it and twist it. It would hold up really well. Rocks are still not very good because eventually it could wear a hole in that, and same with PEX, which is now the latest stuff. There are PEX A and PEX B, but we're just going to stick with PEX A. That supply line goes into a house, but the pressure regulator is generally out by the meter. Although, sometimes they put the pressure regulator under the house or right when you get into the house, and that way you can adjust if you want to, but you don't adjust your pressure regulator very much. Pressure regulators have a bolt in on the top of them that allows you to twist one way or the other to change to how much pressure you have. And generally, it's a good idea to have a shutoff, not only out by the road, but inside your house or right underneath your house where you can get to it pretty quick, in case you have a really bad water leak somewhere, and you don't want to have to run all the way out the street with a T to shut off the meter. It's a T handle. I remember one job, somebody had, it was a beauty salon that tried to give somebody to do the work that I normally did, but not always. And he was trading out at least some, if not all, of his work for the Whirlpool tub that was in there and quite a few other nice things that were inside there. And with, things happen, he cut through the wall to cut out a certain section of the drywall, and he cut into a 1-inch copper line. And I forgot to mention that their copper was very popular, but generally you wouldn't put copper in the ground for an entry. So he flooded that building, and it had 2 floors, upstairs and downstairs. He flooded both floors, and the owner called me up, and I was 45 minutes away. And he said, "Could you come over there and turn it off? I'm out of town, and nobody knows where that shutoff is at." I found the shutoff out there by the street 45 minutes later. Water been running a long time. And that shutoff was so stiff, it had not been shut off for so long, I guess, that it bent my T-handle twice. So finally I went down and got a pipe wrench and twisted on it until I got it off. Now, if you consider if there had been a shutoff in the building right before it went into everything else, they would have been able to shut it off. And it's the same thing. Say if you had a water leak underneath your sink, that's flooding your cabinets, or in the kitchen, you would want to get to it as quick as possible. If it's dead of night, you're having to find out where the meter is, covered up by grass generally, and full of water in the wintertime, maybe even during the summertime if it's tends to carry water, and you're sticking your hand in there trying to shut it off. When you can use a pair of channel locks, or you get a T handle, you're trying to grab it and turn it when you can't even see it. It's dark at night. So it's a good idea to have a shut off inside your house for the supply line coming in. A lot of times with mobile homes, they have that shut off directly underneath the water heater. And also underneath the water heater is an outlet that allows you to hook up heat tape to that supply line. You may not know that so you might want to leave an area, if you have vinyl skirting, that you can take out real easy to get to that shutoff underneath the water heater. And also to check your heat tape to see if it's working. After the supply line, it will split up. Now, sometimes if you have a really big house, it can have a manifold, which would be where the supply line comes in, and then it has a whole bunch of choices where it all goes out. It's basically, hopefully, all the same pressure. Invariably not. And then those supply lines go out to your water heater, and then after the water heater, it splits up again. And it goes to the different places that it's going to go for hot water. So you have cold water and hot water now. The supply lines going underneath the sink will need a shutoff. And you can use a SharkBite or GatorBite shutoff, but you can also use a PEX shutoff with crimp rings, and I usually use stainless steel, but you can use copper. Copper requires a different kind of crimper, and PEX, the stainless steel ones, have a specific crimper that's a little bit more of a ratchet type. And now they have battery driven for both, I believe. But again, the copper type, although cheaper, it takes up a lot more room. And you have to use two hands if you're using the hand-driven model. Two hands, not one, like you do with the ratchet one. So you might look into using the stainless steel rings because it only takes one hand. That tool is about the same price, and that's around $50, $60 right now in 2024. And you get that Home Depot, Lowe's, any number of hardware stores. And then the crimp rings are more expensive because they're stainless steel, not copper, solid copper. So you go from 10 cents to 25 cents. But believe me, it's the way to go. Stainless steels doesn't corrode and go, it's going to be there for a long, long time. And actually really hard to break after you put it on. That would be what you crimp the PEX to your shutoff. Going to that shutoff, you will have used elbows. I use copper. I don't use plastic. And you can use plastic, and you can use copper. I just think of it as a very little cost, marginal cost, for way better quality. Longer lasting, it's not going to freeze and break because like plastic will, although PEX seems to stretch and come back. I don't know, I've had a piece put in my freezer just to check it, and I kept checking it every day, taking it out, let it thaw, and put it back in, and probably 10 or 15 times. It never caused any problem. And I've seen it in practice. As a matter of fact, there'd be people that couldn't pay their electric bill, and they just leave the property behind, and the PEX wouldn't break, but the faucet would break because the whole house was cold. There was no heat. That's why I recommend a lot of people use vent-free heaters instead. And I generally, although you have choice to use the little plastic thin lines, they're very inexpensive, and to go to your faucet with a slip nut that goes onto it, and the 3/8 slip nut on the shutoff also. But I personally use the braided, chrome-plated braided line that's covered, rubber underneath, and I've not had any issues. And again, it costs a bit more. Instead of $3 or $4, it costs $10, $12. But it allows me to feel confident that that's going to be a good connection and a long-lasting one. I've not had one break yet, but I'm sure somebody out there has. And then when it comes to the hot water and the cold water, it's the same thing. Generally, now because PEX has that choice, I usually use the cold water with blue, and red would be my hot water. So that really makes it quick if I want to connect into something, if I want to figure out what it is. If you're losing water and it runs very long, the water will drop below, on the hot water side, below the heating element if you have an electric water heater, and it will burn the top element. So that happens a lot whenever somebody has a busted line. So, if somebody were to bust a faucet and or a hot water line just won't shut off, it could be an issue. Generally not, because your supply line's still bringing in hot water to it. But if you, for some reason, lost water and you had the hot water side for any reason open, it would go below the top element and burn that water heater element. And then into that sink in the bathroom, or even the washroom out in the garage, or in the sink in the kitchen, that kind of place, it would need to unload through a faucet. Now, faucets, I don't have a favorite brand, because generally I let the customer pick what they want. I used to really not like Moen from Lowe's, because I would go way out in the middle of nowhere and they'd be missing one little screw or one piece out of it. I don't know what went on for about 5 years there, but it's not as bad anymore. So I'm not going to say Moen's bad. But, you as a customer are going to be living with that. So you might want to be involved. Sometimes you're like, man, just give me a regular old faucet, find a fair price, not the cheapest, not made out of plastic, but something with brass fittings on the inside. Again, that's your choice. Some of your mobile home bathtubs and sinks have faucets that are actually made out of totally plastic, very little metal. And they're chrome plated plastic, sort of like cars now. They're not really going to last very long. But, they're very inexpensive usually. So, those are choices you make. Then you can spend hundreds of dollars, perhaps even thousands of dollars, with a really elaborate faucet for the sink in the bathroom or in the kitchen. You can have faucets with lights in them, faucets with magnets that retract in and out, make it look like a waterfall coming out or a pump. There's a lot of beautiful faucets and a lot of choices. So generally you want the person who lives there to be involved with that. And I encourage them to pick out what they want. And then I can hook up. Now, one of the things that I don't like about the new faucets, but there ain't much I can do about it, is that where you connect to the main faucet, have a hose going to the sprayer that generally is separate. They have a plastic push together fitting, and that really makes me feel like with time those things are going to give up. But I don't know what to tell you. Those particular kinds of faucets don't have any other choices that I'm aware of. Now, that's not the case with the faucet that has the sprayer right in the neck of the faucet itself. That doesn't have that snap together. Sometimes I think I did see a couple that way also. So, but I don't have any alternative to it. I just want to tell you that I think that eventually, from what I know about plastic, it deteriorates and it's not going to be any good for quite a while. But anyway, it will drop out of that sink into the drain. The drain sometimes has a lever that raises up that stopper that's built in. They inherently are really neat and pretty to clean up, and it covers up the faucet itself. That invariably catches hair and everything else. It's bad enough it catches, that hair catches on that X pattern in the bottom of that drain, but it also collects around that up and down stopper that's controlled by the lever on the faucet itself. So, you need to think long and hard about those things. They're really, really neat and everything, but invariably, as the years pass by, you're going to have to call somebody to come clean it out if you can't do it yourself. And then it drops down into a tailpiece, which connects to a trap. These tailpieces are generally lightweight plastic again. They seem to be pretty long lasting, but the nuts quite often get somebody's skipped something like one of those plastic washers. And those plastic washers have different sizes, 1.25 inches, 1.5 inches. And you can get adaptable ones, one to fit to the other with those washers. But if somebody misses one of those washers, the first thing they generally try to do is put it on without the washer, not knowing that they forgot to put it in, and they tighten it and they break the nut. And so that don't work, and they can't figure out why it's not leaking. So I've seen where they spray Flex Seal on all over it until it looked like something was encased in fluid. Plastic, see-through plastic, all trying to stop that, and never did stop the leak. So, and other times I've seen it where they use a variety of different caulking or glue and slow it down maybe a little bit, but still would leak. So you have to have that washer turned with the small side toward the beveled edge. You'd have to go to a video, and that's more of a show you thing, and I probably at some point ought to do that. And after that, it goes into a trap. The trap generally has a nut on both sides unless it's glued in PVC. That glued in PVC would be very difficult to change out, and you can quite often get a stopped up sink. It'll be inside that trap. So generally, underneath the sink, you can take these nuts loose and go and dump that. And believe me, it's going to be stinky because of the stuff that ends up staying in that trap. That trap is there to keep the sewer gas from getting up to your sink and then floating around in your house. I've gone into convenience stores and smelled that gas, that sewer gas smell, and that would not have a septic tank. That would have been from the main sewer of the city or the county, whatever it was. And I've went into Walmart's before, and what that smell generally is, there's a trap in the floor, and they have a way to clean, hose down, or even control leaks, and they have a floor drain. In the concrete, there'll be a trap, and if they don't ever put water in those traps, that trap doesn't work. It just dries out, and that sewer gas comes up right through the trap, and it ends up being the return air pulls it out even better than it would have just drifting out. It pulls it out because that return air is pulling air into the air conditioner, so it pulls that smell and pumps it all over the whole store. So one time I went into Walmart and I said, excuse me, could I talk to the manager? It's like, everybody's like, oh, do you got a complaint? No, I just wanted to talk to your manager for a minute. The manager said, yes, sir, and he's all concerned. And I told him, I said, that smell is a floor drain that hasn't had water in it recently. So like once a month, you need to go out and just pour water in your floor drain so that your trap will work and you won't have sewer gas coming up. He goes, oh, thanks. So it's probably not something they teach all the managers to keep an eye on. Maybe they do now, but it's been several convenience stores and at least one Walmart that I helped with that. Not that I'm any kind of hero, I just know the smell. So, water, when it goes down that drain, pushes air, moves air inside that pipe. So at some point after that trap, it connects to a drain line that has usually an up and down line. Now, the up part goes up through the roof generally, and that is your plumbing vent. It most of the time does not do anything but go through the roof, and it just sticks up there. It has a boot around it to keep water from running down into the roof, and it just sticks up above the roof, and that lets, when the water passes through that drain, it displaces air, it moves just a little bit, and then whenever the water's through, the air goes back in. Okay, that's what that's for. So that is how you keep your sink and your toilet from going bloop, 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 bloop. Because whenever what that is water goes in there, air gets displaced and goes around it, and then comes up through the sink or the toilet. Bloop, bloop, bloop. So that is what your vent is for, to help it move just a little bit of air. I've done a lot of metal roofs where I did not have any need to put the vent through the metal roof, particularly on mobile homes. I just let it vent underneath the metal roof, and all it's doing is moving just a little bit of air. And I don't think it's ever been a problem for mobile homes because it vents out through the ribs outside. Now, either way, that smell is trapped up underneath the roof. In a house, I mean, you could get some sewer gas smell up in your attic, and possibly that could. I haven't seen a scenario yet, but you would have to worry about it more on a house. You want to go, but there's an alternative, and that is called a mechanical vent. The mechanical vent, it just needs to be higher than the drain of the sink, and it can also act as a vent for the toilet next to it. That vanity in the bathroom. Or the sink, it can be a mechanical vent could be in there. Now that's got a flapper in it that does the same thing. It just doesn't let it constantly vent out sewer gas out of it. It just lets enough to move back and forth. So if you have a problem with a sewer vent, with your sink or your toilet going bloop bloop bloop, with air coming up through it when you flush it or when you drain it, then you can put a mechanical vent because evidently your vent stopped up. Now, I have been on the roof and found golf balls inside of them, dead birds inside of them, tree limbs inside of them, leaves, and that will stop up your vent up at the top of your roof. If you're in an apartment complex, there's a number of things like that that can be issues. So after that, it goes down below and into the concrete or underneath the house. It's really nice when it goes underneath the house because if you have a drain line problem, you can fix it.
I see sewer traps underground under mobile homes. I've been removing them. Is that okay?
Sewer traps in the ground under mobile homes. I don't know why you would need that. That doesn't make any, I don't know why they did that. Your sewer traps usually are part of the mobile home itself and in just below the floors itself. And that's where you want it to be for the toilet. So, so you're going to be great. Just go ahead and put it in a different place. You definitely need a trap, but I have no idea why they put a trap there. Usually, like for the toilet, it's directly below the toilet. So it will go down that 3-inch line and then up and then over and then wherever it's going to go. So yes, that's perfectly fine. I don't know why you would put a trap in the ground. And I've not seen that, so that's rare as hen's teeth. And then it drops into PVC. Now, usually the PVC that you use for drain lines for your sink or your toilet is going to be Schedule 40. And that can be, made bigger as more and more sinks get connected, or the toilet and the sink get connected. You could go to a 4-inch. Usually, a 4-inch line is really big. You probably won't need it unless you have a very big house or a lot of water going down through there. But you can use a 4-inch line. There's not a problem. When it comes to the drain line, you want to be careful that it doesn't fall very fast. And here's why. When it comes to the toilet, the solids tend to not get flushed if the liquids outrun the solids. So it ends up being stuck in there, and then the next flush comes through there. The fluids go real fast, and the solids stay in. Eventually, you end up with problems with the getting stopped up. Also, you don't want to go down even a little bit and then back up, because the solids will stay in that low part, and you'll end up with instead of a 3-inch line, you'll end up with that much of a line. And then guess what? That gets stopped up. And you're like, man, what is wrong? And you have somebody run a snake or do a snake yourself, and they clean it out, and it works for a while yet. So anyway, that is why you don't want to have underneath your house any kind of a dip. You want it dropping. And I think the slowest you want your sewer line to fall is 1/8 of an inch per 10 foot. And believe me, that's pretty slow, but hey, there's a lot of water going through there. Another classic problem, and this is not anything to do with the sewer itself, it is what's being put in the sewer. Another classic problem that I've seen with a lot of old houses, particularly cast iron, is, but not only cast iron, is that people pour greasy dishes or pots and pans down the sink. So what happens is that coating of grease goes into that pipe, and it just makes that pipe by a 32nd of an inch a little bit smaller, until eventually I've seen 3-inch pipe end up being the size of my finger, a pinky size. So it's not a good idea to run grease down the drain. So if you can, don't do that. You'll end up calling a plumber, and he'll end up having to use a snake. When it comes to PVC and underneath your house, the further north you go, so I'm in the middle of the country in Arkansas, we don't, I've never heard of a problem, and I'm in the northwest corner of Arkansas. I've not had any problem with sewer freezing, but up north, most assuredly you have to insulate those sewer lines if they're exposed to air. Now, that could be an awkward thing when it comes to finding out where it's leaking, because it's got all kinds of frozen stuff on insulation that you can't see where the leak is. So that could be a whole new world that I haven't had to go into. Although a lot of people who move from up north to here say, hey, don't you have to insulate those lines? And I have to explain to them, no, you don't. Again, there is other choices, although I don't recommend it. It's ABS, which is a black, instead of a Schedule 40, it's a black pipe. You see that in a lot of mobile homes because it's very lightweight and inexpensive. I haven't seen any reason why it can't be used. It doesn't fit Schedule 40 very well at all, so you could end up, if you're trying to use ABS and connect it to Schedule 40, you have to get the right fittings to do it. But I have seen all kinds of things on drain lines where they're trying to adapt it, especially if they drop into even thin wall, not Schedule 40 PVC, not ABS either, but thin wall. I've seen people use coffee cans and then tape, duct tape. I've seen all kinds of plastic wrapped around and all different. I've seen masking tape. I've seen electrical tape trying to keep things from leaking. And the glue that I use, as a rule, and use a primer to get it softer, is blue glue, which would be a wet and dry glue. Particular brand I don't have. There was a while there that supply lines were a problem, and OT at one time many years ago, man, you had to let it cure for quite a while before you put pressure to it. But hey, guess what? I'm not using PVC on supply lines, only on sewer, which has no pressure on it. So you're going to want to make sure that you put it all, that glue all the way around, or that primer all the way around, and then put the glue all the way around. When you push the pipes together, you twist it a quarter of a turn so that you know you've got it sealed up good. And a lot of people don't know, but they make a coupling. It's called a repair coupling. It has instead of that where you bump one side to the other, there's a ridge there that keeps it from sliding too far. It has no ridge in the center to keep them from moving. That allows you to pull past when you got the last pipe in, you got a certain length, even if it's that long, and you can put two repair couplings. You slide them past, and then you bring in that piece exactly, lay it like if it's in the ground. You can't really move that pipe. So you end up putting a coupling on both sides. You seal it, put your primer, and then you put your glue on, and then you can slide that repair coupling right over it. So you're doing both sides of that piece of pipe and sliding the repair coupling over it. It's pretty neat. There's a lot of different angles, and I could go on and on about plumbing. The biggest thing is you're hoping to only do it one time, so just do it right the first time. Take your time. Don't be in a hurry. I know you can be cold and wet and miserable and angry that you might be laying in sewer, and you don't want to be in sewer if you got cuts. If you do, you need to get cleaned up fast, because that can cause an infection that sticks with you for a long time. Hopefully you guys can mind me dealing with purple headphones. That's my wife's idea. So we're trying to figure out how not to have problems. We did have problems. Hopefully it's not where you guys can't understand what I'm saying. When it goes down into the ground, it ends up going into a distribution. No, I'm sorry. It goes into your septic tank. This first part of the septic tank is supposed to catch a little bit, and then it goes over into the main tank. Again, if you're pouring grease down those sewer lines, what happens is that first part of the septic tank and the top part of it totally gets covered up with white grease. And eventually that grease will back up the line, and you'll end up, when you take that sewer line or take off the top of the septic tank, and you'll see all that white grease, and up that main line leading to the sewer septic tank will be full of white grease also. And believe me, I've seen it. The next thing that's very, very common, and anybody that's ever had a septic tank cleaned out, that you see on the top of a septic tank, and it's not anything that smells good. It doesn't matter how good you took care of your septic tank. But this is a way that you don't take care of your septic tank. If you flush plastic things like Q-tips, or if you throw down feminine products, they get in there and they swell up big time. If you throw cigarettes, they do not deteriorate. They sit there on top of the septic tank fluid and just stay there. And eventually makes it where it doesn't function. But now the feminine products end up being the size of softballs. So when you do that, you're clogging up your septic tank. It's just a matter of time. The same with wipes. Even though they say they're biodegradable wipes, I promise you, they do not deteriorate fast enough to not cause a problem. Particularly when you got grinder pumps, where you grind it out and pump it. I've got videos on doing that. They get inside that pump and just hangs up. So don't, even though they say they're flushable, don't. It's a bad idea. And what happens with septic tanks, and why you want to get your septic tank, they have a flushable, I'm trying to think, I think it's called Rid-X, that keeps the microbes growing inside your septic tank. And you're like, man, why would you need that? You got all kind of nasty stuff for those things to grow on. Well, what happens is all those cleaning products that you use are strong, and they kill all those microbes, which is what you want them to do. But guess what? They go down into the septic tank and they kill large sections of those, and then your septic tank's not working like it should. You need those things because they break down the solids and make everything break down so that it goes out in a more liquid form all the way out to the field line. So that would go into the distribution box, or you might have heard of a D box, where your main line from your septic tank goes into a D box, and then the D box might spread it out to 4 lines out there, and then they might go out 100 feet, 60, 70 feet. So now you have sewer lines that are covered with like foam on the outside, and that helps it spread out into the ground a little bit better. Before, and even now, you still have sewer lines that have holes in them, and it just goes into the ground. Eventually the ground will get full of plastics and everything else, and it won't be able to absorb it. And that makes it back up, and then you end up having to clean out your septic tank. Sooner or later, as is everything, nothing lasts forever. Sooner or later, you will have to change your field lines. And some people will come along and say, I've never had. And then other people say, I have to do it every 10 years. That's depending on the earth that it's going into and how well it's doing. All of that is a true skill. And on the West Coast, and probably on the East Coast in the big cities, plumbers that work for companies that are plumbing companies are making $200,000 a year. So the things that I'm telling you or showing you on videos might save you a chunk of money, because they have major overhead, offices, buildings, trucks, insurance, and tax responsibilities. So they're going to try to make sure that they make enough money to cover all those expenses so they can stay in business when you call them. But guess what? And I'm going to say this many times, we have not been having enough babies since the 70s in the world to replace the people that are dying. And that includes
52% of women over the age of 30 have not had children.
Yes, and I think most people have not, the women particularly, have not been told that it's very difficult to have children after 35, let's say. So, either way, we have also taught at the same time that we're losing population, so the population is shrinking, we have less people to maintain the infrastructure that we have. And I have heard many of these people who think, well, we have too many people, we need to reduce population. Consider all the conveniences that we have is because of the many, many people that have worked together to make the technology and the infrastructure, the electrical lines, the plumbing lines, the roads, the trucks that take to make the roads, the people that make the oil. It requires a lot of people. So less people you have, the less convenience you're going to have. Does that make sense? Even if you live on a island out in the middle of nowhere where there's not no people, to have the convenient things that you're used to, it takes people a long, long ways ago to make them and a ship to bring them to you. Okay? People are necessary. Second problem, 60s and 70s on all the way to now. So now we're talking 50 years. We've been telling kids, you need to go to college. So what have colleges done? In the last 50 years, they've got outrageous amounts of money to teach you how to speak English properly or gender studies. Okay? So these things are going to be replaced if technology is going to do what they say it is, like artificial intelligence. Those jobs are going to be replaced sitting in people that sit in cubicles. Guess what? All those people did those things, and nobody encouraged their kids to go do the trades. So less and less people, even more so, are in the trades. So I've seen videos where plumbers have said, I can't fix my own houses that I have bought because it's getting too expensive to hire plumbers in the other town where I don't live. I'm just buying these properties for rental properties, and all these houses are deteriorating. 50-year-old houses, the plumbing will have to be retrofitted to something more efficient. I just got through changing out cast iron pipe in a motel from 1974. It had cast iron pipe and PVC, kind of a mix. So we are going to, from 1974 on, not to count the ones that are from the 40s, we're going to have to change out all that PVC and go to PEX, and who knows what kind of problems that we're going to have with PEX, but probably not as much as PVC, particularly with cold weather. I will tell you a problem with PEX that you may not know about, and that is that you should not be in the sun. Okay, it will deteriorate and fail. That's not like PVC. That is PEX specific. Do not let it get to have sunlight. It will deteriorate. Now, back to plumbers are going to be hard to come by. I'm going to predict that it's going to be more and more expensive to hire a plumber and harder to get him to get to your house anytime soon. Now, you say that don't make any sense. I've been able to, but I'm telling you, it's going to change. It's going to take a long time for people they need to go to work as a plumber. Even welders are making $200,000 a year. I just talked to a young guy that was my boy's age. He's 23, 24. He was making $30 an hour as an electrician in Iowa. What I'm going to tell you is these things that I'm showing you on videos and other people are showing you on videos are saving you a ton of money.
And it can be a business.
It could possibly be that you can be a local repair person to help other people if you feel capable after doing it. But I'm telling you, there's going to be a lot of money to given to people who have those skills, who are familiar and can get in there and do what needs to be done. Another thing that's happened along the way is that we have gotten as a generation softer and softer. So the people who come across the plains were pretty tough people. They'd already survived whatever kind of thing that bugs that went through. They were really tough people, but they didn't live very long. But they had to walk everywhere or ride a horse for long ways. And every kind of thing was trying to eat them or kill them, Indians or bears or wolves. You were tough. You went out there and dug post holes, and you did that by hand. You dug your well by hand if you could find a place to do that. They were tough people. They built their houses out of logs, and then it got, a little bit better in the 50s and on and on. Things got running water. Everybody in the 40s and 50s got electricity, and now we're hooked to all the other technology like phones and 100-something inch televisions with the internet that lets you go and talk across the world. In that growth, we don't have the toughness that it takes physically, and we have to be tested to get that toughness. So I would suggest that when you do these things, just don't feel sorry for yourself. Understand that you are being made to be tougher. And you are learning some of the things that maybe those poor people who had to get up in the middle of the night and live in a log house, maybe with a dirt floor, and stoke the fire to keep warm in blizzards. Where now we have central heat and air generally. Yes, there are people who heat their houses and keep their plumbing from freezing with wood. But I'm telling you, we are not as tough as a people as we used to be. And I would like to present to you guys to think about these things that I'm, as a repairman, seeing. I expected that young people would be competing with me and I would have to find my little niche to hang in there, but that's not been the case. I expect that I will be working until I'm very, very old, or I just can't do it anymore. So please, I'm asking you to think about these things. We need to get kids more aligned with repairing things themselves, learning skills and trades. Because I promise you, those people are going to be the people that you need. And you won't be wanting a friend of yours to come over and make a program. That's for a company. That's not for you're not going to be able to get a drywall finisher out of a guy that works in a cubicle. Not very often. So these are the things that I'm wanting to talk to you guys about, just to let you know. And I want you to know that you can ask questions, and if I don't have an answer, I'll figure out something.
Suggest topics.
Yeah, if you have a particular topic that you would like me to talk about, even ask questions about, just send it in, and I'll let you know what my experience of being on the world 62 years, soon to be 63 years. I'll be happy to share with you. And I've been in a lot of oddball situations. Like, I have actually fell into a septic tank that was covered. Yeah. And I've actually been in a septic tank, and my help above me was going, whoop, whoop, and I had to tell the other, get him out of here because I'm in a septic tank. I don't want him throwing up on me. So, believe me, I've been in some really weird situations, and you don't have to go through those. I'll be happy to share them with you so you can dodge that where you can. Otherwise, I wanted to leave you with those thoughts, and my motive is to be leaving something behind when I'm gone. In the meantime, I'm going to help my fellow man, and my job is to make your life better. And remember, we are Americans, not Americans. All right, guys, I'll leave you. See you later.
hell do I stop?
You shut the phone off.
Pause. Maybe. Like doing all this, and it's let go of my phone.
Shut the phone off.
Yeah, hold on.